Hi guys, it's Jen. Today I want to talk to you about 5 INFP traits that I think make us quite vulnerable to predatory people. Now, these could also apply to any personality type that has high empathy. So it might not just be INFPs, and it might not be all INFPs, but I do sense that there is a distinct FINE flavor to a lot of these traits. Number 1 is unconditional positive regard. So when I was training to be a counselor, unconditional positive regard was something that we learned very early on, because all people come from different walks of life. They have different opinions on things, different political views, different ways of expressing themselves or interacting with others. You know, we're all so different. And if you can have unconditional positive regard just as a starting point when you meet someone, then that's a really good place to start. In theory, this sounds great, and I think it is great, obviously, because I do it. When I see any person in front of me, I tend to idealize that person. And thinking about it logically, I have very little information to go on. But anytime I meet a person, I immediately think they're great. I think they're so nice. They're so wonderful. I see only the positives usually, but this can be very dangerous. Obviously, it makes me quite vulnerable, because I assume good intention on the other person's part. I come into this interaction, every interaction with a new person, assuming that they're kind, and that even if, they come across maybe a bit brash or maybe a bit rude, I assume they don't have ill intent, that there might be a good reason, they've had a bad day, whatever. I assume good things. And honestly, I don't know where to go from here in order to come to a place of, protecting myself, but also not becoming a person I don't recognize anymore. I don't know. It's a difficult balancing act, I think. I'm working on this one. I don't know. All right, so that brings me to number 2. The INFP innate ability to empathize deeply with anyone or anything for that matter. The reason this can be dangerous in terms of being around predatory people, it can lead to you making excuses for bad behavior that is actually harming you because you understand and can empathize with how that person got to be the way that they are. And they may not give you any excuses, but I, as an INFP, can create excuses for another person's bad behavior. I am capable of that. I can just imagine. I can see a teeny tiny hint of something and turn it into a whole story that excuses this person's behavior, even if they aren't inclined or don't have the capability to create this story for me. I will create it for them. So I think that's quite dangerous. Having too much empathy for people can be dangerous if it's not balanced, if you know what I mean. So even in the criminal justice system, having a difficult upbringing or having bad things happen to you, it's not an excuse for murdering someone. It may, in terms of sentencing, it may be a mitigating factor. It might be part of plans for rehabilitating this person, taking into account their upbringing and their rough childhood or whatever, or the circumstances of surrounding the incident. That will all be taken into account. But at the end of the day, we don't excuse murder because someone's had something bad happen to them. I think that it, in a lot of ways, discounts all the people that manage to still be good people and kind people despite bad things that have happened to them. If I'm endlessly making excuses for toxic behavior and people treating me badly because of what they've experienced. I think there is a danger in making excuses for people because we can empathize with them without balancing it with needing other people to also take personal responsibility for their own actions. So number 3, I feel like is INFPs. They're very focused, and maybe in particular any INFP that's watching this video, because I don't know about you, but my interest in MBTI comes from a place of self-development and wanting to be better and have better relationships, that kind of thing. So we're working on ourselves. That's kind of why we're here. Because we are so prone to wanting to better ourselves and develop ourselves in all different types of aspects, it makes us vulnerable to predatory people in that they might be able to see that we're constantly stopping and considering, could we do better? Could we be better? We're, buying self-help books, watching self-help videos, we're trying to improve. But in order to improve, you have to admit that there's something about you that's not perfect, for example. Not everybody's capable of that, just so you know, INFPs and others watching. I didn't realize this. Some people actually can't come to a place where they can even admit that they've done something wrong. And if you can't admit that you've done something wrong, then there's no way to grow and try and do better next time. You know what I mean? A predatory person might latch on to that tendency that you have, that endless capacity to take on blame so that you can better yourself and do better. And it might become a pattern of somebody putting on you something that's not your fault, but you're willing to take it on. Yeah, look, I know I'm not perfect. I'm, that's why I have this bookcase full of self-help books that I never seem to be able to finish, but yeah, I keep accumulating them anyway. Also, I think it comes into if we're idealizing other people, which we also do, then it might actually be easier to believe that we are the problem. One, because then our idealized version of them, we don't need to let go of that. But two, we might actually be able to fix it. If it's us, we might actually be able to fix it. But just be aware that people may be putting blame on you. Toxic people, predatory people may be putting blame on you when it actually lies elsewhere. Okay, number 4 is daydreaming and disappearing into another world. So, I am not any kind of professional, so take anything I say with a grain of salt. It's just my personal experience. Where I go when I'm daydreaming or dreaming, because let's face it, INFPs dream at any time, any place, no matter how important it is that we're actually paying attention to other things. We can disappear into our own world at any time. So for me, I've experienced childhood trauma, so that's my background. So this is purely anecdotal, this is my own personal experience, but I feel like the place I go to when I'm dreaming is the same place I go to when I'm dissociating from what's happening. So even if you don't dissociate, I think as an INFP, there is a tendency towards, if something bad is happening, something we don't like is happening, we may disappear off into our own world. And I think there's a danger in that. It comes back to not necessarily dealing with what's happening in the moment because we've gone somewhere else. As self-preservation, but also because it's just my go-to. And I think this can be dangerous. And it can also lead to the previous point of taking personal responsibility for things that you're not responsible for, or you're not solely responsible for. If you go straight to your dream world instead of addressing what's happening, instead of addressing the toxic behavior that's happening right now in front of you, if instead you disappear into your own world, when you come back into the now, you're more likely to start attributing the bad thing that just happened. Either you might just not think about it at all. You might go somewhere else. Or you might, because there's no back and forth now, like you're not actually speaking to the person who you've just had this interaction with, right? It's all now, you're just having a conversation with yourself, as always. You're more likely to take personal responsibility for it because you really don't like what just happened and you really don't want it to happen again, but you didn't address it in the moment. So the only person with you now is you. So you're more likely to take personal responsibility for it and try and avoid it from happening in the future. Also, if there's someone who is twisting things, then by not addressing things in the moment, they may retell what happened in a different way later. And so you're very vulnerable to that as well, because it's your, and you were off in a dream world whilst the bad thing was happening, if you know what I mean. So like, you may not have been paying enough attention to disagree with them when they retell it later. So I just think sometimes going off into our own dream world can be dangerous if bad things are happening in the moment. Okay, and that brings me to number 5, which is the INFP allergicness to taking action. And specifically the kind of action that is really quite definitive in nature, the kind of action that is final or that to our mind collapses all the other potential possibilities, all those threads that we like to keep open. If we have to make a decision or take action and it feels like it's gonna like get rid of all the options, tie us to one definitive answer, I think we like to shy away from that. Now, logically, I know that in life, the actions and inaction, because both are decisions that I'm making, like I do that all the time, and you really can't take both forks, you know, like it happens all the time. But I like to create the illusion that those paths or those threads, those trains of thought that I didn't pursue are still there. Like I like to keep that illusion alive. So I don't like to make decisions that I can't backtrack from at all. And I think if you're being preyed upon or there's a predatory person around you, then this could be something that they prey upon. Your inability to make decisions or assert yourself, that you like to keep all the potential possibilities alive all the time, could be something dangerous for you and a tool that you're giving them to use against you. But that's the 5 INFP traits that I really think make us vulnerable to predatory people. I don't know. What do you think? I would love to hear your feedback if you feel like leaving me a comment. Or cool if you don't want to though. I don't know. These are all things that I feel like I need to work on as a person. I don't know. Do I want to give up having unconditional positive regard for everyone? Maybe I just need to temper it. Obviously, I think number 5, I think becoming more decisive and more assertive would make me safer in the world. It also means that realizing this about myself, I have started having disclaimers. A handyman come and fix a tap and some other things the other day. He was really nice because I really honestly believe that the handyman was really nice. You know, he talked about his wife. He mentioned his daughter was studying criminology, and he's like so proud of her. Like I assume that he is like this loving and nurturing husband and father, and I just can't help it. Like I think he's a really good guy from the very limited information that I have from him. Look, I get it. So I have to have a disclaimer with people now. Don't trust my judgment, because I'm a terrible, terrible judge of character, because I think everyone's great. Although there's this tiny subset of people that I can spot a mile away. So I will say, like, I don't know, it's this archetype of person who I immediately like can see them for what they are, and other people don't seem to be able to see them. So if that person, if that archetype walks in the room, I can see them and nobody else seems to be able to see them. But other than that one archetype, I don't know what it is about that one, but I can see it. Okay. All right. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Yeah, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.